Okay, hello back everyone to a new exciting video on this channel. This is actually gonna be just a short, easy tutorial, so you know, nothing too long about it. And I'm not gonna keep this up so long as before, so without further ado, before we start, please leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, because honestly, you'll get a lot of information on, you know, future stuff in Blender and, you know, just a lot of great content, I hope at least. And of course, leave a comment with whatever you think about this channel and of anything you guys would like to see in the future project. So let's actually get going with this. So basically what we do in this tutorial is we're going to create a fence. So of course, get your swords ready and let's actually start by selecting everything and deleting it all, just like, you know, we should always do in Blender, right? So usually at this point, it's the moment I would tell you, hey, get your reference ready, and I would actually still suggest you to do that. However, this time we're not going to use, at least I'm not gonna necessarily use a reference because I kind of know exactly what I wanna do, which is mostly concentrate on geometry nodes. All right, so for those people that don't know what geometry nodes are, well, geometry nodes actually is, because it's a tab and a function in Blender. And also for those that want to get a little more into like the modeling part, because I'm not gonna explain everything super in detail because I did that before, please actually check the beginner course with a train, because that's a perfect way to actually get into this. So let me actually just get a screencast ready. And well, the start is actually pretty simple. We start with modeling, you know, really the model of the fence. So you can do it kind of whatever the way you like. You can make a metal fence with, you know, spikes, or a wooden one with normal planks, or like some spiky planks. And that's actually what I'm gonna try to go for. So let me just do this. All we have to do at this point is actually just model a little bit how the planks themselves will look like, and really that's kind of it. You don't have to go, you know, super crazy with it. If you want to go and do some super cool models, that's really nice. But I'm not gonna exaggerate. I'm just gonna keep it, you know, pretty fairly simple. So this I will just name plank, and that's kind of about it. Okay, so with this being here, we're kind of half of the way done really with the modeling part, because really after this all we need to do is get Bezier curve here. And you might think that that's a little crazy, but it's not, and I'm going to show you exactly why. So with the Bezier curve being selected, we will actually go into the geometry nodes tab. We can actually close this window here because we don't really need it, and create a new geometry node. And actually, let's pin it. Okay, so for those that might wonder what pin is when you click on anything else, this will still stay here. If you click while that is unpinned, it will change to whatever, you know, other body is selected. So let's actually call this fence and pin it again. So while it is pinned, you cannot actually name it. So, you know, just for your reference to know that in the future. Okay, so having this, actually, what we need to do is basically two things really. First things first, we need to see points. Remember, again, you should watch the introduction to geometry nodes, but we need to see the points basically on our body, because we're actually going to work with vertices and, well, points, right? And the way to do this, if you remember, we had distribute point on faces last time, but we cannot actually use it this time, because this time we don't have faces, we're working with curves. So curves work a little bit different. So go to the curve tab and go to operations, and actually you can have a function called curve to point, and you just put this right in between the input and the output. So the input is actually the curve we have right here, while the output is whatever we get at the end. So we put this, and actually we get a pretty, scary situation here because it looks really weird. But you don't have to get scared of this. Basically, it's just a lot of points, put together one next to the other. And I think we can scale this down and apply the scale, and it will look good. We don't need to worry about it though, and you'll see exactly why in just 1 second. But for now, let's just keep it here. All right, so we have this. And now what we do need to put in is an instance on a point right here, right? So nothing happened. And the reason for it is because we don't have anything that is instanced on our points, right? So basically we right now tell Blender, hey, wherever we have those points, just put this here, but we don't have anything. So what we do is actually go to the plank, drag it, and put it here, and we get an object info node with our plank there. And basically we will just take the geometry from this and put it into the instance. And that's exactly what we will get. We will get, well, the fence, really. And actually, if we decrease the points, we also will decrease the number of planks, because that's exactly how this works, right? So the number of points you have on a curve, it equals to the number of, planks. So you can also make this this curve. You can resample the curve however you want. This will not really help that much though, because whatever you put in here, the curve point will still have a count. So really, you don't care about that too much. And all right, so we have this. This is pretty cool. Okay, this is pretty nice, and we like it. However, as you can see, this actually takes in consideration the origin point, right? Let me actually drag this a little bit here. And there's one thing I don't really want this to do. I don't want this to actually be in the middle. The reason for it is because when it is generated on the curve, I want to be able to put my curve on whatever road or like ground I see, and I want the curve to be down there. So I'm actually going to create this loop and actually Shift S, get the cursor to selected right here. And I just forgot screencast only works when you made it, in every tab, which is still super weird. All right, and right click on this, set origin to 3D cursor, and now everything is cool. So Shift C to put the cursor back. And as you can see, actually now this is perfectly put on the ground because the Bezier curve is also there, and this will always generate from the origin on those points we were talking about on the curve a little earlier on, sorry. Okay, and we have this. This is super fine. This is super cool. So what exactly can we do right now? Well, first we can actually play with the scale, because usually here's a little bit of a deal though. Usually you do have scales of different types. So it really depends on you if you want to do this or not. But basically I like to take this and put like a random scale. So a random value for this, but I don't want it to be so different, right? So to actually make this a little better, I will just put a map range right here. And I will just put the minimum to like a very low difference, right? Like usually 0.95 works. So there's not that much of a difference, but you can actually see that they are a little, different from one another, at least in terms of some parts. But here's the deal. I don't want it to be different in terms of like width and, depth and stuff. I wanted just the height to be different. And if you see the scale, when you plug it in here, you actually will affect X, Y, and Z. And we don't want that. We only want to affect the Z value. So to do this, we actually will use another node called combine X, Y, and Z. Plug this right in here, and this will disappear because all the values are 0 right now. And so you need to put this to 1, and this, you will plug it in here. And so now only the Z value will be randomized, all the others. So actually if I put this, as you can see, all of them have the same width and depth. but when it comes to the height of it, it's actually different for each of them. So again, 0.95, and this works pretty flawless. Good. So we have this. What else can we want though? Well, we want a plank that is, well, actually, right behind it, because that's how fences actually do work. So how do we really create it? Because that's a little bit of an issue, right? Because not only you have to make it work, but you have to somehow, because we will do, this is going to be a little bit a special fence. No matter how curved our Bezier curve will be, that plank behind has to be the same. So if we're actually going to model it, that will not necessarily work because it will not follow that trace. But we can actually create that from here, from the geometry nodes. So the way we do this is actually, we will put just, you can go to mesh, go to primitives, and actually get a cube. And now we have a cube in here, which is pretty cool. Let's actually see the cube. So Control Shift left click, just like we do in the shader editor. And, we can just play around with the values for this one as well, like we did for the fence itself, to actually match a little bit what we need. Even though it doesn't exactly matter, and you'll see why in just a second. Now, what we need to do is actually make somehow this cube follow the exact path that our curve, the one that we will originate our fence from, will basically have. So it will have to have the exact same shape. And to do that, it's actually not that hard, really. All you gotta do is really, so curves, actually, because it's easier to see it that way. So for curve, you have some other options, which is, for example, the curve to mesh, right? So curve to mesh is actually a pretty useful object. So basically, when you have a curve, you cannot interact with it in geometry nodes like you do with a mesh. So you do have these nodes that actually make this transition. It allows you to get curves to mesh and meshes to curve. So you can actually play around with it however you feel like it. So actually, if you put this curve in here and try to look at it, this will only be our curve because that's all we have. But if we put this in, nothing happens. The reason is actually, if you see it right here, the input geometry is not supported. And the reason for it is we put a mesh in a curve, which makes no sense. So the way we actually, get around this is actually by putting a mesh to curve node right in between, and there we go. Now we have a plank that actually respects the exact length of our Bezier curve and the shape of our Bezier curve, which is genuinely what we want, right? We actually can adjust now the width and height and stuff, but just so you know, they will be different. I do recommend you the Z to always be 0 because Z right now is the height of our Bezier curve. And if you make it longer, you'll actually see that it will create these artifacts here, which we don't want. So put it to 0 all the time, and it's just going to respect the length that has. And X right now will be our Y. Again, you have to think right now from the perspective of the curve, not from the perspective of your cube. That's how it goes. And having this here, we can actually make it a little bigger, maybe. Something like this, and actually a little thinner. No, 0.02 actually works super well. And maybe 0.15. And there you go. There we go. Well, we have what we want, but we can only see this, or we can see the planks. So how exactly are we gonna get over this? Well, again, super easy. Just get here a join geometry right in between and get this mesh to this. And now we have both the plank here and our fence, our planks, right? So how do we get this actually? Because I think everyone sees a problem here, right? This is down and we don't need it here. So how do we settle this? Well, again, it's super simple. We actually will get a transform node, transform geometry right between the cube and before we get it transformed into a curve. And actually, we will get this up. Again, these are going to be different, so you have to actually make the Y this time so that it actually affects us in the way we want. And the X to get it a little bit behind. And this actually doesn't look that bad. As you can see though, we cannot really scale it on the Z. And again, we can make the Z a little bigger. But the problem with it is that, again, it will create artifacts. So we don't really want that. So we will always have to leave it like this. But I think it looks pretty okay, kind of. Because there are some problems here. As you can see, our fence is super, like the planks are, you know, super straight. And the curve behind is not. And even though, you know, the planks are actually arranged along the curve, the rotation of them doesn't actually match on all the axes with our actual curve, which means it will look super weird because this will be bent while these will just stay straight up to 90 degrees and, well, actually maybe like 0 degrees. So it's not really good for us. And the way we can solve this is actually we need to modify the rotation of the planks. But here's the problem. If we try to modify this rotation, for example, we will apply it for all of them. And there's a problem because, as you can see, the curve is not the same on, you know, each point unless you make like a straight curve, which, yes, it will work without this, but we don't want that. We actually want to be able to make the curve however we want, and these planks to actually still stay on our I don't know, support plane here in the back. So to do this, we actually need to borrow the rotation information from this one. Let me actually arrange this a little bit. And again, I did talk in the beginner tutorial about this, but it's very important for you to work organized in this kind of stuff, because if you, let's say, will give this to someone, or if you actually will sell this, people will have to understand what you have done, what you have created, because otherwise, really, it's all for nothing. So I do advise you to work as, you know, clean as you can. It's gonna get some, it's gonna take some getting used to, really, but I don't think it's that complicated for you to do this, and I think it's super good for you as well, because when you go back to what you did, it's much easier for you to understand what you did if you actually worked very organized. All right, so we have this, right? So we have the object info, and now we need to somehow get the rotation from these to our instances. And it's actually, again, something I think we did do in the beginner tutorial. If I didn't, I'm going to do it right now. It's actually because of the curve points that actually gives us some information, one of them being actually the rotation of our points. And actually, we will take this and plug it right in, and it's a mess. This doesn't work whatsoever. And what could really be the reason? Well, really the reason is because you're again affecting all the axes, and secondly, this is not actually really doing a good job. Now, we could try to use combine XYZ here. So we could try to do basically the exact same thing. Put this back to 0, just like they were. And actually take the rotation, plug it only into Z, and try it. But again, it's not going to work because it's going to take just the value. However, what does work is rotate Euler, which is a node from Blender, and really, it's just kind of a magic. It's basically aligning everything to the information it gets, but again, it's not working properly in our case. And the reason is not that strange necessarily. First of all, you're doing it based on object, and you don't need to do that. You need to move from object to local for this to actually work. And now you just have to play with a rotation. So basically, you're copying the rotation and you know what you rotate it by. So just rotate it on the, let's say first on the Z. So let's put this to 90. Let's put the Y to 90 as well. And actually, as you can see, this doesn't work properly. So what we do need is actually minus 90 for the Z, 90 for the Y, and there you have it. Now they are all rotated properly. And actually, you can also rotate them like back and forth a little bit with X, as you can see. So that's actually pretty helpful as well if you so want it. Now, again, it really depends on you. That's really where you have to come in and make these changes. And also now we have to see where we have to put this support blank. I do think that clipping a little bit, it's okay because you won't really see it. Now, if you don't want this whatsoever, you can play around with the values. There will be maybe a little bit of a distance in there, even though here seems kind of perfect. But some of the planks may have a distance, but none of them will be noticeable. And that's the thing. All right, so if you don't notice it, it's fine. It's good. We don't need to worry about it. So hey, that's cool. All right, so we do have this. And actually, let me put it kind of here. But actually, being a fence, we wanted to, be a little... Let me actually even enlarge this a little bit. So maybe 0.25 would do a better job. But we need two of them, right? We need to put this one more time. And the way to do it is, well, you could either copy that and put it once more, which, is actually a method. And it's a method I do use a lot. I'm not gonna lie. But you can also duplicate the elements. And all right, so to actually get the second plank, and actually whatever number of planks you do on, so sorry for my gibberish there. I should not listen to rap god so much. So what you actually do want to do is actually use instance on points once again. So actually let's duplicate this, but we cannot actually just instance this again on our curve because that doesn't really make sense now, does it? But we don't need to do that. What we do need to do is actually get a, I forgot what his name, quadratic Bezier, that's the name, right? And what quadratic Bezier is basically another curve. So Control Shift and left click to actually see what we get. And this is actually what we get. And we just want it to be a simple curve that is not bent like that, right? So set the start for X to 0, this to 0, this to 0, and just the end, at the end put Z to be 1, and that's basically what we're going to get. Now, with this being put here, this is gonna actually give us our points right here, and we can actually also take, the curve to points and put it not there, right here. And right now we basically have the same thing as we did before, but what we do is in the instance here, instead of getting another object info, we're going to actually take the curve to mesh here that gives us our support plank. So instead of actually getting it into the geometry tab there, we're going to get it into the instance right here, right? So actually let me pull all this back a little bit, kind of like this. And when I'm going to put this in, it will look something like this, which is not actually good. And the reason is it's not too good is, well, it has a few reasons, really. It's because of the number of points. So as you can see, if you set the number of points to 4, this actually works fairly well. But again, the position is not what we want. So we're going to take the transform to geometry to basically get what we need. Of course, we're going to set everything to 0 because we don't want it to be where it's putting it for us right now. But we're going to just, settle with a little bit of a Z transformation here. So something like this, which is actually fairly good. And why not? And actually, we can also play with the middle of this. So you can play with the start if you do so wish, to make them a little more separated. And actually, let's make this just 3. And then you can just play with the position of it. And that's basically it. That's going to give us a fence. And you know what? Actually, I want just 2 of them, because I think it looks better with just this. So this is it. This is basically how you get your fence to work. And how do we actually make this a usable node? Because right now, actually, we have it right here. So let me actually just save this, right? All right. And actually, what we do have with this is a pretty cool thing. It's a modifier, but is this everything we can get with it? No, there's actually one more thing we can get. So let me actually showcase you what we have by having this, right? I will delete this, get another Bezier curve in here, and this is empty, right? And you go to add modifier, go to geometry nodes right here. And from this arrow here, we can actually see the geometry nodes we have available. For us, it's just fence right now. And actually, if you put it, it's going to apply basically the geometry nodes we created there. It's think about it mostly like a programming language. You just told it what to do from the get-go, and it's just doing that said thing. Now, again, there's even a cooler addition to this. If you go into edit mode, you can actually delete the vertices. And if you draw some vertices in, you will actually get our fence, which I would say it's actually pretty cool. Of course, you do have to play around with the values a little bit, because, you need to still more or less control the fence a little bit. You cannot just, leave it all on its own. But basically, it's giving you exactly what you, needed, really. So, actually, let me delete this here and this here. And as you can see, it does going to have a few problems that you will have to modify yourself. Like, you will have to play around so that you avoid these things. That's just, because of the curve. It depends how the curve will be drawn. But usually, if it's a little bit of a curve, it's not gonna be a problem. I just wanted to showcase. And here, for example, these two are, I don't even understand how these were drawn, really, like this. So one of them has to go, and the other one will be the problem kid, probably, because I think this was the bad one. Was it rotated bad or something? I don't know. Anyway, the point is, so actually, I'm gonna delete that. And yeah, no, here, the first one was a mess. So let me actually do it again, because I didn't like that. I do recommend you drawing from the top, not with this tool, but with this one. So yeah, if you just draw it normally, as you can see, it's gonna work properly. So it all really depends on the way you want this to work. But genuinely, this will do a fairly good job, actually. However, as you can see, this will look really bad because it doesn't have enough planks. It doesn't have, nothing of the sort that actually make it special. So how can we really do this? Well, fear not, because we do have a way to create this fairly easily. So go to geometry nodes again, and actually, if you see in the geometry input, we actually have a little dot down there. So what exactly does that dot do? Well, we do know that the point here controls the number of planks we have on our fence here. So what can we actually do is, instead of this number being put right here into the geometry nodes, we can take this, put it right here into this empty dot, and then we'll have a count. And actually, if we go to the modifier again, that number will appear here. So remember all those modifiers we were using, like the array and all those? That's basically what they have behind, only those are scripted in Python, which is the language that Blender uses. This is basically just like Unreal's blueprint and stuff like that. This is visual programming. So basically, this is what you're doing here. And yeah, basically, this will give you the tools to modify the fence however you want without having to go into the actual geometry nodes. You'll just modify the parameters, and for you to have an easier way identifying this, all you gotta do is press N, as you saw me do, and have this interface here. Go to count, and actually let's call this planks. Okay, and now you can see that the name also changed in both of these. So now this is the number of planks. And it's just depending on what you really want to change. Let's see. What else would we like to change? Shall we change the randomness, the scale randomness? Let's say it. Scale random. So as we put this down or not, this will actually affect our geometry, our interval there. Of course, again, we don't really need to go too crazy about it, but I think it's a fairly important aspect that we should be taking into consideration. So yeah. That's a good thing to change. Also, we can change the number of support planks. So again, let's change this and let's call it support planks. And why not? We can give a little bit of a control over the positioning of those as well, right? Because again, if you do remember how this works, this actually does control the, positioning of it. So we could actually give it the distance between it. So for this to work properly, we need to first combine X, Y, and Z, because we do need to tell it which one is which. So again, minus point, not minus, but 0.20, just 0.25. It's, I think, the value we used, or is it not? Oh, it was minus 0.25. Yeah. Okay, and actually you can get, again, this value right here and call it distance, let's say, support planks. Okay, and that's fairly useful, I would say. And really, there's nothing else I can think of. Maybe the transform, but I don't think that's really that useful per se. So yeah, this is kind of it. So with this here, we can actually change this however we feel like it. We can increase or decrease this randomness here, which I think is super useful. And yeah, we can do all sorts of cool stuff with this. This is why I love geometry nodes so bad, because actually is such a easy way of doing these extremely cool things. Now we have this, and we can actually go in a little bit further to actually make a cool fence, right? So what am I gonna do is get this plank and actually modify it a little bit to look like an actual plank. Now for the textures, you can do like we talked about. You can just get a texture from Polygon or Blender Kit or Polyhaven or whatever place you find and you'll like. However, I will actually get an image. I get an image from Pixabay of a plank, and I will get that to actually work for me. And actually, let me just move the display really quickly right here. So I'm getting this into GIMP, and I'm actually going to do a little bit of I don't know how to call it, of a work with it, right? Because what we have to do is actually get this and make it a grayscale picture. And the reason for it, it's because, again, mostly we will want to use colors we can add in Blender, so that's, super easy to do. But what we do want to do is actually make this exact thing, which is actually make it grayscale. It is not that hard to do, as you saw. Actually, no, not multiply. Sorry, why did I do this? So yeah, replacing this. So what you got to do is get it into GIMP, get the colors. This is at least the way I do it. Now I don't know if it's a better way or if it's a more correct way per se. But well, it is the way it works for me. So I'm trying to see if there's like any other thing that could get us to this exact stuff. Doesn't seem like it. So desaturate is, in my opinion, the place to do this. I don't think there's any other way you can do it unless you actually work it through. So go to desaturate, color to gray, and basically it will give you this. Now you could play around maybe a little bit with the contrast if you so wish. But again, we can do this exact stuff in Blender as well, so I don't think that's the case. All right, so we can actually take this texture right away. So let me actually just export as, right? And we can keep it as a JPEG and just put it with blank texture. That's it. All right, and I'm gonna actually get a quality all the way up. And let me just get this out of the way. And let's actually get Blender in. Okay, so now we have this, right? We have our plank and we know everything that there is to know about it, right? Let's just getting into shading. And actually, let's create a material which we'll call also wood plank or pulk, as apparently I said. And it's not that crazy from here on out, right? So all we need to get is, well, a really base color will do different. But let me get the image texture first. So open, and let's just go whatever you put your texture. Okay. And now, basically, this is what we will have, which is not that great. And there are two reasons for it. First reason, I think everyone does realize it already. This is not UV unwrapped, as you can all see. It's actually still here. So actually, let's select the sharp edges, Ctrl-E, mark seam, and we will just unwrap it like this. It has to do a fairly decent job, and it actually did perfectly fine, right? And look at this. This actually doesn't look bad whatsoever. It's actually already looking pretty fine. Now, of course, if we want to use maybe, like a bigger plank, maybe something like this, we can easily play around with it. Of course, I think this is a little too much, really. So let me get this to like somewhere around. And then so I think somewhere around here, right? Like a 1.2 apparently works fairly good in my case at least. Of course, you can play around, see if anything else works better for you. Now, of course, from here on out, we have to actually plan this pretty smartly, right? Because here's the deal. This can actually give us, so if I give a color ramp to this, I can actually plug this into the base color. And this will actually give me the exact information that I need to create my color. So I can make this like a super dark brown, and this a little of a lighter brown. Of course, this remains to be seen. I can basically change these colors whenever I actually wish. And actually, there's a small problem there, if you can notice it. The fact that we could actually see this small tile there. Now, of course, it's not that easily to be noticed when you actually do... Is it better this way? Yeah, so let's take the white a little different on the scale. Apparently it looks a little better. We get rid of those tiles. You wouldn't really necessarily notice it, but hey, if we can actually do this better, why shouldn't we, right? Okay, so we have the color, which is nice. That's cool. But we need to basically get this one more time. The reason we need to get this basically one more time, it's because we need to actually change this to a non-color data. Which actually happened here as well, which is fine. It actually looks even better now. So I'm cool with that. So what we do want, the reason that is because this is the same, so actually you just have to make it different, and you can set this to RGB in case. But I think I like this look a little more. I might change it in the meantime if I don't think that's the case, but we'll see. So what do we do with this? First of all, we can actually play with the normals. And of course, we can put this into a bump and actually, get, some bump out of it. Considering, of course, our material and our wishes, of course. So we can leave it something like this, and you can actually see this makes a great deal of difference already. So let's actually see how this affects it. Right, so we want this, and we actually need this to be extremely contrasty, because we need the bump to actually work in our favor, and actually we need to invert this because we need the bump to actually look like it's going on the inside. Now let me see. So this works fairly okay, and I think this fair enough job. Again, this has to be a fairly decent detail. You don't have to go crazy with this one. Also, there's another thing we can do, of course. We can actually get a displacement in this case, right? We can get a displacement and actually get that displacement in here, and well, of course, this will add way more of a craziness to our object. This will give a totally different way, and actually we need to change, actually not to change, but actually we need to make sure that where is it? It should be here, settings, right? For the we're in Eevee, right? I was really wondering why I couldn't see the option here. Okay, so this is bump only, but we actually need to get displacement and bump for what we have to do here. And actually, well, we won't really see anything when we do this because we don't have any light, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you already saw a problem. You don't need a light to understand what's wrong there, right? So actually, let me get a sun. And the reason we get a sun is because, I just want to light this fairly easily, not fight with this too much. So let me just play around with this one. Apparently is not enough light. And of course, I think a lot of you knows the reason, and the reason is the scale, because the scale of our object is pretty crazy right now, which it shouldn't be, by the way. We should have had it way more distant than it is, and we don't really care about that right now, so that's fine. Alright, so as you can see, we actually do have a displacement in place for our map, right? And it actually works fairly well. But the problem with it is, of course, first of all, the bump is way too strong. So I actually would recommend, getting it to a way more subtle. So 0.05 apparently works a little better, but also the scale of the displacement, in my opinion, is pretty crazy still. But now it should be fairly better. Now, of course, the reason that it works is because of the multi-res function. So don't forget about that one. Hello, me from the future here, and I actually wanted to tell you that multi-res resolution is actually a pretty cool modifier, but it's used for sculpting, which I hope that can integrate in this tutorial. I realized it's actually a bad idea because it actually just complicates a lot of things. And I just realized towards the end that textures are more than enough for what we need. So everything I talk about with multi-resolution, don't take that in consideration because we do delete multi-resolution in the end and we use just bevels. So with that being said, please forget about multi-resolution, just concentrate on the textures and on the modeling, and that's about it. Bye guys. And alright, that's basically kind of it. I think it's enough for right now. And actually, let me just do one small change here as well. Let's see. Again, these don't have to look the same, and actually, I don't need them to look the same. All right. I will be totally honest. I don't need them to look the same whatsoever. So what I'm actually going to do, which might seem pretty crazy, is actually delete that for good, and actually just take this up. Let me actually delete all these details because we don't really need them right now. They're actually gonna be a lot in our way. Okay, that's fairly alright. We don't need any multi-res. We don't need anything right now. We'll just shade this one smooth for now, and this will work. I promise this will work, but it's going to take a little bit of a challenge. Let's call it, alright? Because what we do need to do again, it's make this a little different, and to make it a little different, I would advise to just put in a little bit of more geometry and just do something like this, right? Like make the fence not be so simple and actually look like it has been damaged by something, and there are some broken planks here and there, right? Like we could see this and feel like, oh, that's actually horrible. And of course, also don't make them be the same, because then that would be super obvious that it's a 3D object, which we don't want people to know, right? That's kind of the whole point of this thing, is for people not to realize what is and what is not an actual object, 3D object. And let's see, should we add another one? I might add one more. No, actually, you know what? I'm gonna add this original one. Get this out of the way. Get it back into the edit mode, and actually take all this added geometry out, because again, we will not need it for what we do right now. And actually, the reason I did this one, it's just because I'm going to chip it just a tiny little bit, alright? So this will be a little different from what we just did. So let me actually look at you. What happened there? What's going on? Okay. No, because I was using the knife tool, right? I couldn't select the front with one. So actually what you want to do here is use the knife tool and just, play just a little bit around with the geometry, so you basically create some sort of details. Let me see, actually. No, this was actually, that was not a bad idea. So let me do something like this, maybe. And I'm going to try to match this as much as possible. Of course, it doesn't have to necessarily. It's just a pretty good thing to do. And now we could just select this face and this face. And of course, these two faces up here. And we will just delete those faces, and we will have an absolutely awful geometry, of course, which we don't mind because we will have to anyway add this. Where is this here? We don't need that, right? So we will still try to keep a fairly decent geometry, even though this will not be the best thing ever, right? But we will still try to do this. And just because we know now that we will need to still make this, I'm going to UV unwrap it. And actually, this is gonna be another type of plank. So we have 4 type of planks, and I just realized I'm showing stuff and I'm not actually on the camera. So now I'm on the camera, so we have 4 types of planks, and here's the deal, right? So by having this, what we will actually do is use this in our geometry nodes. So for those of you that don't remember how to do this, I'm going to show this fairly fast, and this is kind of the last thing we will do. First things first, we need to actually put this in a collection. So let me just say plank types. Okay. And we need to do, what is this? Oh, we don't need that. Okay, so take these, put them in, and actually make sure whatever you do, actually, these are gonna be out of our way. We don't need this to be in our way of the camera and stuff like that. This is actually gonna be hidden all the time. So there's that. Okay, so having this, let us actually get a Bezier curve in there and actually look at it. Let's, draw from the top whatever we would need it to do. And that's a fairly nice one. And of course, geometry nodes on, and then we will apply our fence. And of course, our fence will look absolutely horrible. And the reason for that will be because we played around with our geometry, of course. And the reason for it is because we did play around also with the origin. So before anything, really, we need to make sure the origin is back where it needs to be. So that's the original plank, and now as you can see, this works perfectly. But make sure, because since the others are just copies of that one, first apply the scale, and secondly, make absolutely sure that the geometry is actually right in the middle of the bottom of the plank, right? So Shift S, and we'll have it right here, and then get out of it, and then set origin to 3D cursor, and that's basically what we will do for each and every single one of this. It probably seems like a fairly good question actually would be, well, why did we have to model these whole thing, and didn't we do them out of geometry nodes? Like, can we actually do that? And the reason we didn't do it is because, first of all, I think it's way more tedious, and I actually don't think it's helping us a lot. And actually, a lot of the time, you will see people having this. When you see procedural buildings and actually procedural stuff being created, this doesn't mean that objects were not modeled individually. Actually, it's the contrary. If you're going to create and you're going to work into this kind of stuff with like only procedural stuff, you have to also keep in mind the fact that you will actually have to work with a lot of models, the same type of models. So you'll have to basically model the same thing over and over again, make a lot of different variations of the same object, basically, because you will have to basically instance it most of the time. And even though that might seem easy, it's not. It's actually getting fairly complicated the more things you put in. And actually, let us get an instance and let's see how this looks. And it looks bad. It actually genuinely looks super bad. So actually, let's separate the children and reset the children. And and also make them pick an instance, right? So let me get you through these. So you saw how it works. So the reason, so first separate the children. And the reason is right now, this doesn't take one object in consideration, takes a whole collection of objects and puts them all in. We have 4 planks, so it's going to instance 1 plank for each point we have, which is not good. We need to separate them, so it basically takes 1 plank out of the 4 we have in our collection. That's cool. Second thing, right now it's going to originate them wherever we actually have our stuff, which is actually, again, not something we want. And we need to reset them to basically give them, you know, a position. And actually, if we're not going to separate this will not work. So actually, no, when you separate the children, sorry, I got a little bit confused there. If you do separate the children, you separate them from the original, what's it called? The original body, the original collection. However, to pick one instance, because right now, if you look at it, they are overlapped. But if you pick one instance, it means out of the 4 of them, it's gonna pick which one it wants from the collection. And it's picked randomly, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, and right now, this is actually what we get, which I actually think it's a pretty cool result. This works the same. It's going to keep adding whatever you need, and it's actually pretty cool. Of course, if you want to change something, you can just come over here. And actually, I kind of want to change the height of this one, right? So let me just do this and get it kind of around there. And actually, if you go here, you'll see that this is now perfectly well, and it's perfectly up there. So this is a procedural and the beautiful fence, which you can create. Of course, if you put this in render mode, only the first plank has actually just these 2 will have a material, because the others I didn't get to do it, and actually I'm lagging now because of the render there. The others will actually have to be given materials, but there's actually one more way we can work with this. So let me put this into materials. After you get all the way up here, right, you can come here, set material, and actually what this will do is give material to the geometry that you set it out to give materials to, right? So you can actually come here, give it a wood plank material, and it will give it to all of them. Now, of course, this is not perfect, and the reason for it is, first, not all of them are UV unwrapped. Secondly, the materials are made to work for only 1 plank, because that's what I designed it to work for. So it's not actually going to work for this. And most of all, really, you should, in my opinion at least, right, you should really work for, I would say, a better material. And those usually are custom materials, really. So it really depends on you. But this is how you get a procedural fence. I think it's a pretty useful tool, and I definitely think it's not that hard to do, right? So it's very usable. It's super flexible for a lot of uses. And I would say it's a fairly decent tool to have in your favor. So with this being said, guys, I wish you all a very happy week and an amazing day. And also, I hope this helped you quite a lot. And if it did, please give a like to this video and also subscribe to the channel, because a lot more of these tools will show up in the future. Bye, guys. Alright, so if you guys actually want to check the final result, it's actually right here. So I did change a little bit the design. The idea is the same. It's gonna work perfectly the same. I just made way more blanks because of well, a small idea I had, and I'm going to talk to you about it in just 1 second. But basically, this is what you can do. So this still works perfectly fine. You know, you can increase the number and whatever. You can also choose the type of planks you would like. Of course, you can still change the dimensions that you might want it at, and so on and so forth. I still recommend 0.95. The support planks can be increased and actually set it to 3. And then you can just play with the distance if you really want to, do this. What else? Well, basically, this is kind of all you can change from here. If you want to change more, you can actually do it from the geometry map. I did actually kind of set it so that anyone that will try to change it can understand it. If you have any type of question, don't hesitate to actually message. I think you can message from Sketchfab. And if not, just leave a comment on YouTube. I will definitely answer it and try to help you guys out. Of course, the shading is also able to be changed. And if you're wondering what you could change, well, the support plank, as you can see, is actually getting a procedural material. So you don't really have to, think too much about it. It's right here, the support plank. And you can actually change you can change anything you want. But I recommend just change the RGB. So basically you just change the color that it has. You can make it really whatever kind of color you would like so that it actually fits better your scene. Again, this will be right here. And actually, if you don't want to, have this whole thing, you don't want to work on all this, you can actually get this file for free from Sketchfab. And it will actually come with, right now, there are 4 models. So let me actually show you that really quickly. So is the one you just saw right now. You can also get the basic planks. I made a white fence just because I wanted a little bit of a difference in color at least. Of course, you can also get what is it? So the apocalyptical you already saw. Then this apocalyptic version is not finished yet. This plank has still to be customed, but I'm working on that, and it's gonna be done by the time I'm posting this. And also a normal square fence, just in case you guys want that as well. All of this will be for free on Sketchfab, and I don't want to talk ahead of myself, but I will probably have 2 more type of fences for free. So on top of this, and there will be a few more versions that will show up in the future, probably next week or so, that will actually be paid. So you will get at least 10 models, and I mean models, and probably 1 or 2 type of textures. It depends on the model that I get, for $2, and 20 models with, again, 1 or 2 textures for each one of the model, for $5. Again, I'm still working out on this if I will actually do it this way or not, but I would wish you guys to actually leave a comment on how you would like this, if this actually seems okay to you. And I do think this is a very useful tool because it actually will get rid of a lot of work, especially if you're into like game design or I don't know, like animation or whatever. You don't have to do all this work anymore. You can just get this, put it all there, and you basically get rid kind of a headache. And don't worry about the textures and stuff. All of them are baked already. So again, either you're going gaming, either you're going animation, these textures will work for sure. So there's no problem about that. So with this being said, thank you very much for watching again, and I wish you guys have a great day. Bye guys.